The National Geographic Channel is airing a 6-part documentary hosted by the wonderful actor Morgan Freeman, entitled The Story of God, which will, as it says, take viewers on a trip around the world to explore different cultures and religions on the ultimate quest to uncover the meaning of life, God, and all the questions in between. We've watched many documentaries on religion over the past few years, and almost none has mentioned anything of Goddess. We hope to be pleasantly surprised by this documentary, because after all, Morgan Freeman is God. So far, the writers have mentioned the goddesses Lalita and Ganga, but only as 2 of millions of Hindu deities. No mention yet of the originations of human spirituality founded in a great mother goddess. In the 3rd episode, Freeman takes us to Catalhuyuk, and in 10 minutes of talking about that ancient Neolithic goddess site, not one mention of Goddess or humanity celebrating an Earth Mother deity. But in one episode, they do refer to God as he, she, or it. So that's a good sign. Even so, most of the people shown in the documentary will undoubtedly refer to God as he and him, because that is our tradition on this planet, a patriarchal tradition of perhaps 5,000–6,000 years. God is always referred to as male in Christianity, in Judaism, in the Vedas. Read what the prophecies in the Vedas say about God. The first book of Vedas, the Rig Veda, clearly teaches there is only one God. He is the creator. He is father of the human races. His name is Brahman. Most of the world now thinks of God as male. It is true. But Goddess still gave him birth, because Goddess far, far predates God on this planet. So let's take a look in our presentation today, the story of God, the story of Goddess. Let's explore the important differences between God and Goddess cultures, between patriarchal and matriarchal societies, and what kind of living conditions each provides to humanity. Let's start by talking about age, the age of the story of God compared to Goddess. In our reception room at the Goddess Temple is Constance Tippett's wonderful Goddess timeline. Archaeology tells us that goddess veneration, the honoring and celebration of the Great Mother, very likely actually goes back even farther than this conservative timeline that the brilliant Tippett has made. And just as an aside, after this presentation, be sure to take a few minutes to enjoy Tippett's wonderful YouTube video giving us the goddess big picture. It's truly brilliant. And we honor Constance Tippett for her amazing work in the world. This timeline is truly a treasure for all of us. You can order it online at goddesstimeline.com. Tippett's timeline focuses on the Upper Paleolithic, the Late Stone Age, maybe around 30,000 years ago to start. But we now know that for humanity, Goddess is even older than this. The Acheulean goddess is 250,000 years old, at least. Some say 800,000 years old, but that is in dispute. Also called the Venus of Barakat Ram, found on the Golan Heights, and there you see to the right is the so-called Venus of Tantan, which was discovered in Morocco, and both have been dated to between 200,000 and 500,000 BCE. What is not in dispute is that this is probably the oldest human-made figure of deity that we know of. That we know of. Important words. Archaeology is the most patriarchal institution in the world, mostly upper-class white males. And so these words are important, that we know of, because we have to ask the question, what else have we not yet found? Archaeology was shocked to find Göbekli Tepe. This is a religious site created by humans 12,000 years ago, far more advanced than archaeology and anthropology believed possible. It's in southeastern Turkey. It's the oldest temple structure known. There probably are older temple structures that we have not yet found. At 12,000 years old, it is older than agriculture. Has elaborately carved stones, distinctive T-shaped pillars. Pillar 43 shows a vulture carrying what is believed to be the soul of a person, which is represented by a ball, to the afterlife. So we must ask, what else is waiting out there for us to find? What else are we going to find that will rewrite human history once again? And while there may be much that we do not know, there is so much that we do know, and yet that has been hidden from modern peoples, not taught in your history classes. We see that for hundreds of thousands of years, this was the face and body of God for humanity, a female face, a female body. The period of time when God was a woman. This incredibly important find points out clearly that goddess veneration has been central to humankind for millennia longer than the patriarchal God. Patriarchal God is just 3,500 to maybe 4,000, possibly 5,000 years old. A baby compared to goddess. Her baby. A baby compared to our powerful Great Mother, giving life to all on earth. The three Abrahamic religions of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, which together constitute about half of the world, began about 4,000 years ago. Began with Abraham, who, as the legend goes, was asked by God to kill his son as a sacrifice to him, to God, but whose hand was stayed by that same God once he, God, saw that Abraham was willing to kill for him. Imagine a story involving a goddess asking a mother to kill her child to show her loyalty. We do not have such tales. Interestingly, the God that Abraham worshipped was called, among other names, El Shaddai, which means God the Mountain. The goddess had been worshipped as the mountain long before Abraham and was the origination of his deity. There are so many names for the ancient mountain goddess. Fuji, the Japanese mountain goddess. Kybele, she even looks like a mountain. Diana, Artemis, Bertomartis, all goddesses of mountains and forests. So, if you search for a world religion timeline on the internet, you will see charts like this one. And take a look. It starts about 2000 BC and goes to the present day. The oldest they show is Vedic Brahmanism. They also show in the purple line, about a third of the way down to your left, Minoan culture. It does not say goddess culture, but it was a great goddess culture. And what none of them shows is that the chart should look like this. And it's hard to see because even this is not to scale. But that entire red line is goddess culture on Earth, at least 250,000 years ago, making all the other religions much, much later. You will not see this timeline on the internet except on goddess-specific sites like ours. God is the ultimate power in the mind of humanity, and God as female has been erased from the mind of humanity. But we are here to change that. You know, I am offended not only because my religion is erased and ignored, and we know better, but also because human history, as we teach it to children, is flat out wrong. And the educated people know this. And yet still the erasure of female, of woman, of goddess continues. So we have established that the story of goddess is far, far older than the story of God. Let's take a look now at temperament, comparing the story of God with the story of goddess. The God of the Abrahamic religions is punitive, vengeful, and destructive. He wipes everyone out but Noah and his family with a flood. He wipes out Sodom and Gomorrah. He drives out the Canaanites and orders everyone killed. And it says in Samuel 15:3, "Now go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. Devote to destruction all." Not even the donkeys are safe. There are countless passages in the Bible that talk about God wiping people out, killing children, authorizing stoning people to death, taking women captive from enemy tribes. There are countless passages in the Bible that talk about God killing people with whom he is displeased. In Numbers 21:6, "And the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died." Interesting, taking the ancient symbol of the priestess and making it evil. In more recent times, we have male gods of love and compassion. John 4:8, "He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love." That's a blessing. But the overwhelming image of the Old Testament God is one of an angry parent ready to rain down destruction on you if you disobey him. And with the crusades that killed hundreds of thousands in the name of God, and the burning times which killed hundreds of thousands of women in the name of God, and the genocide of millions of indigenous people by Catholic missionaries and conquering soldiers in the name of God, and the assault of hundreds of thousands of children by pedophile Catholic priests, and the stoning, murder, and acid attacks of women in Islam taking place today, all authorized in the name of a patriarchal God, dominator model religion. It is fair to say that this male-centric version of God can be terrifying. So let's compare that to the most ancient stories of goddess. Goddess spirituality does not have a written Bible. And that is perhaps the point, because our Bible is the body of woman. Woman, the mother, the life-giver, the carrier of the blood mysteries for humanity. Our body is our Bible, the first teacher and the original text of humanity before the invention of writing. Goddess is not vengeful. She is not punitive. She is not cruel. She does not kill wantonly. She is a protectress. Now we do have goddesses such as Kali who kill and who seem to kill. And it's clear from their stories that these goddesses are killing the ego, cutting off the head of man. Out of compassion, to help him when he has forgotten how to live well. There are many stories of goddesses rampaging and killing. Yes, it is true. But if you do your research, you will find that these stories all began about the same time as patriarchy arose. Men attempting to make goddess seem evil, to put their male god above her. Original stories of goddess are all about she who loves, she who cares for, she who helps her children. Our story is simple. Our Bible would have only 2 verses. Woman gives birth, woman cares for her children. So the temperament of God has justified the murder of billions of people over the millennia, while the temperament of Goddess has always been a helpful, loving, great mother to her people. For 6,000 years, patriarchal religions have created societies of poverty, violence, and abuse of women, children, animals, and the land. While matriarchal and goddess cultures have typically been cultures of greater peace, justice, and fair sharing of resources. Goddess cultures tend to have greater fairness in the sharing of resources because Goddess cares for all her children, not just some. So, to summarize, the story of God compared to the story of Goddess. Goddess, 250,000 years old, very mature. God, 4,000 to 6,000 years, comparatively immature. Temperament of Goddess, gentle, loving, compassionate mother, providing bounty and blessings to children equally. Temperament of God, well, for most of history, violent, punitive, and destructive. But more recently, God is love. Conditions provided for humanity. By Goddess, very life-affirming, sharing of resources fairly, egalitarian sharing of power between women and men, thinking 7 generations ahead, reverence for life, respect for resources and animals, a sense that all is one, all is sacred, an awareness of the cycle of life, interested in joy. The conditions provided for humanity by a male god? Pretty much life-controlling and exploiting, war, poverty, abuse of women, children, animals, and the land, a dominator model, oppressing the weak, hoarding of resources with 1% of rich while 99% struggle, oppression of women, abuse of children, no respect for animals, and not interested in joy nearly as much as interested in power. In summary, that is the story of God compared to the story of Goddess. The members of the Goddess Temple of Orange County represent an unbroken line of women and men holding for humanity the goodness of goddess culture. So let's enjoy the wonderful Morgan Freeman and his story of God. And whatever is contained in the last 3 episodes, let us remember the truth that on this planet, Goddess gave birth to all gods, that it has always been not Father, but Mother Earth, that Goddess is the author of God, and that to erase her from history is to erase the true beginnings of our own human origins, the history of she who actually birthed the one whose story we call the story of God.